Planning Commission. Order. Thank you. First item on the agenda is the roll call. Will staff call the roll, please?
Corey,
Here.
Randy,
Yes.
Nancy, Reed,
Present.
Lisa,
Present.
Sarah Morgan is absent, Dusty.
I'm here.
Sarah's absent is excused.
So we did not actually get the minutes for our last meeting in the packet, so we're gonna skip that part.
Wondered about that.
Couldn't
I
find
thought,
them
was
either.
it
My
just
fault.
me?
I apologize. That was my fault.
I figured they weren't very long.
Leah is missed.
Leah's not here, so we're blaming her.
It just shows you
Oh,
you can't
poor
live
Leah.
without her.
Right. She is very integral.
All right. So 5, correspondence. Do we have any correspondence? Don't have any of that either. Okay. Business. Subdivision preliminary plan continuation for an unnamed parcel, 10.28 acre parcel located in the southwest quarter of the southeast quarter of section 26, township 13 south, range 86 west, county of Gunnison, state of Colorado, and also known as Hunter Ridge, submitted by Hunter Ridge LLC. Take it away, Carlos.
So there's this continuation from, I believe, May 18th, where we had I think it was a list of 13 requirements for the applicant to provide prior to coming back before the Planning Commission. Those items are listed and commented on in my staff report. Each exhibit is attached to that report and linked in your agenda online. So I don't know how you want to go through it, but perhaps a suggestion is maybe to just go through each item.
They're in order, so.
Discuss. Of course, the applicant is here along with Michael Dawson, his legal counsel, Daniel Lambert from Lambert and Associates, the geotechnical engineer on Zoom, Sasa, his daughter as well. And is Norm gonna be here? Yes. Okay, and so we're just waiting for civil engineer Norman Whitehead.
Well, let's start through there then.
Yeah. So, first condition was that the Crescent View Fire Protection District shall approve the fire hydrant locations and fire flows for the subdivision, along with the hammer sack and driveway overlap on location on lot 1. And exhibit C of your packet is the letter from the fire district approving the fire hydrant locations and fire flows. The letter also states that the fire district has no issue with the driveway being accessed off of the turnaround. That's in reference to the hammer sack. They also have a note in there that says the fire district shall review and approve engineered water supply plans prior to consideration of subdivision final plan. To discuss that with the fire district, and they feel that that's the appropriate time to review that once we get through this preliminary stage and things are much more, while not final, in a much more closer to final stage than they are now.
Right. Does the applicant have a comment for this one? Okay.
All right, everyone ready to move on? Do additional geotechnical analysis for the road be performed that considers grading, loading due to structures, changes in water content, and other variables that could impact slope stability. This more detailed analysis should make specific hazard mitigation recommendations based on accepted engineering practices. Once this analysis has been completed, it shall be reviewed by Colorado Geological Survey, who shall provide written comment on the report. The geotechnical engineer of record shall be available in person to discuss the findings with the Planning Commission. So what we have is additional analysis based off of what we requested from Lambert Associates. That's a report dated June 3rd, 2022, as part of Exhibit D in your packet. Daniel Lambert is here on Zoom, so he's available to answer any questions. We've also included a letter from the Colorado Geological Survey that requested just some additional verification from Lambert, and that has also, and that letter is included in your packet. Lambert has also, provided an additional analysis based off of, in response to that CGS letter that's also included in your packet. So at this point, I would just open it up to discussion and questions.
So do any planning commissioners have questions on this? No kidding. Nancy?
I would argue that this item is not satisfied. We requested additional geotechnical analysis was.
Excuse me, I'm sorry, Nancy, I don't mean to. Right in front of you.
No,
What's the number on your mic, Nancy?
this is podium.
Podium, okay.
Sorry about that,
All right, well, I wanted in the record.
for sure.
The reason that we requested an additional geotechnical analysis is due to a couple things. First, and I'm reading this directly from the February 18th an associate study. And this is paragraph 1, 2, 3, 4 on the first page. In our analysis, it was necessary to assume that the material encountered in the test borings extended throughout the development site and to a depth below the maximum depth of the theoretical failure planes. In fact, there were 7 test borings taken this whole site, and only 2 of them actually penetrated to depth of the formational scale that's used in modeling for the slope analysis. So what's done in the slope analysis is based on assumptions from test borings that are not associated with that particular profile B. In fact, the boring that's associated with profile B or cross-section B only penetrates to 15 feet. And auger refusal happens, and the formational shale, which I would assume is the critical failure plane, is not even sampled. So I can only assume that an assumption was made based on the 2 borings, 3 that penetrated to 35 feet and 45 feet to get to the scale. That was used in the model. So hey, this is not a site-specific slope analysis. This is a whole site study. A characterization of the whole slope, not specifically the roads, which was requested. We wanted an additional geotechnical analysis for the road to be performed that considers grading, loading due to structures, changes in water content, other variables. An additional item is that cross-section B, in fact, doesn't even cross road A or B. It only crosses road C. So of course, any grading or loading associated with road A and road B was not incorporated into the analysis, the slope analysis, because that profile didn't cross road A or B. So that's probably why there was no change in load factor. It changed from 1.517 before and after loading. So I guess I would ask Lambert if he would agree that this is more of a site-wide analysis rather than a specific geotechnical analysis for the road section.
Of course, I would agree with that. That's how we titled the study.
So, in addition, asked that with this more detailed analysis, there should be some specific hazard mitigation recommendations based on accepted engineering practices. Now, I didn't see any specific engineering mitigation for any of the roads. Given the analysis that you did, is it possible to be able to give specific slope mitigation practices for roads A, B, and C?
Sure. What deficiencies are you looking to mitigate?
I would like some specific hazard mitigation recommendations for the constructions of road A, B, and C. based
Okay,
on
what
analysis.
hazards are we looking to mitigate?
We're looking at over steepening, loading on an already unstable slope, loading due to snow accumulation and then melt.
Okay, I can provide those.
I mean, when I look at slope analysis that you did February 18th, and then your response to what was requested, I don't see any additional analysis. All I see is basically comments, further explanation, but there's no further additional analysis. I mean, none of the borings actually penetrate any of the roads. How can you engineer a road on a steep slope without having any kind of boring and have any information about the underlying geology?
I wasn't tasked with looking at the road construction analysis. I was tasked with a general global site slope stability and the effects of a surcharge from a road placed upon it. We placed the surcharge road into our software, and that surcharge happened to fall outside of the zone of the already critical failure path, as described in the second letter.
So cross-section that doesn't even cross road A or B, crosses one section of C, I think that that is enough information to go ahead and construct this feeder road on a very unstable, on an unstable slope, what's been characterized as an unstable slope.
It's always been my understanding that a slope with a factor of safety of 1.5 or greater was considered not unstable, but at least marginally stable.
Typically, roads A, B, and not a general site-wide analysis, but a slope analysis for roads A, B, and C. You would feel confident, given the information that you provided, that we could go ahead and, or the applicant could go ahead and construct that road. You don't have any hazard mitigation recommendations, just load up that slope with fill, and that's going to be fine.
Well, I don't think I stated that anywhere, but I'm not the project general civil engineer. I don't design the roads. I wasn't tasked to do any pavement section analysis, so that's not included. It's my understanding. My task was to assess the general slope stability globally of the site, which we did.
Okay. So you you have a sort of a paragraph that appears in almost all of your reports. A site and structure-specific geotechnical engineering study should be performed for any additional proposed new construction and modified grading. The site and structure-specific study should address site slope stability with proposed improvements and provide geotechnical engineering suggestions and recommendations for design and construction of the structure. So what would that entail when you're saying that in your reports? What would that structure geotechnical engineering study entail?
Well, we don't want to see somebody look at a global project site-wide stability analysis and think that they're good to plop a house anywhere on that site, because that could be catastrophic. So
And what about a road?
a roadway could be, and that's why we added a surcharge on the lowest factor safety in the general location on the general elevation of the lowest factor safety failure plane, and recalculated it, and it did not decrease the factor safety below what was already the critical failure point.
Okay, but what, if you were to do what you propose to do as a further study, what specifically would it entail?
If we were to do a site-specific study for, let's say someone wanted to put a residential structure in there, I would recommend more test borings, more lab tests, a topography that was on a finer scale, and their proposed final grading, elevations of all their foundation members, loads on all the foundation members, any new water sources, vegetation, driveways, things like that, anywhere that we're going to have their snow storage, and analyze that. And it would be an iterative process, because we would find possible problems. Then we would go back to the developer or homeowner and say, look, we found these problems here. They'd modify their plan. We'd check it again. And we would continue to go back and forth until we found a plan that maintained stability and still handled all the needs and wants of the client.
I think, in my mind, when I requested item number 2, that type of study, what we were looking for with this low hazard mitigation, test boring, so at least we have one test boring in one of those road sections.
I don't believe there'd be a benefit from moving test borings into roadway locations, because you're just dealing with the strength parameters in the road wouldn't necessarily affect the global stability unless the critical slope failure path went right through that roadway. And even then, the thickest road section might be 8 feet. So you're dealing with maybe a slight decrease at the top. So the angle of friction wouldn't have much to do with it. It would just be looking at cohesion. And it would be such a minute change that it just wouldn't make a difference. Not with the roadway.
I guess I don't understand. So you would request additional borings for the foundations, that you're satisfied with the borings, of the only 2 borings that you had for the whole site that to characterize development of the road. And none of
Right.
those borings actually are in the vicinity of the road.
Is a 5-foot-ish thick road section going to make any difference on the underlying formational material or its residual strength characteristics? No, it's not. Assuming that the project civil engineer takes into account what almost all civil engineers on any project I've ever worked on do: proper grading, removing the water from the site, not letting it pool up, promoting drainage, then we're not going to have that issue.
But that's an assumption. I mean, when we need to have some engineering design when we're going in and developing on an unstable slope.
Okay, again, it's my understanding, based on the profession I'm in, a slope with a stability factor safety of 1.5 or greater is not considered unstable. So I don't know what area you're
Well, it's the.
You're
US
referring to, and you keep
Geological
referring to these
Survey report that
unstable.
was pulled in 1976 that categorized this slope as unstable. And
Okay, and
if you look at what the Colorado Geologic Survey person provided a topographic map and pulled and identified, you may not have seen that, but she showed numerous, not site-wide failures, but numerous smaller head wall erosions happening at the slope break. So there is instability on this slope.
superficially, I agree.
Not correct. That's a misstatement of fact.
Well, you just agreed.
He just agreed.
I agree that it's a superficial failure. I mean, I could go out there with a shovel and dig for 2 minutes and create a superficial failure. That doesn't mean it's a project-wide unstable condition. It's just a little tiny area where 6, 8, 10 inches might slip. So that needs to be accounted for in the site-specific designs, but it's not speaking to a global instability of the project.
I guess I'm still not clear when you're saying the global instability of the project versus.
There's if there are a few spots on the site where a couple feet of soil are looking to erode or slip, that doesn't mean the entire project is getting ready to split down the valley. It's just a tiny little spot where some superficial soils are slipping or eroding. So it's a very localized superficial problem, not a project global problem.
Lisa,
Hi, I have a question related to what Nancy's talking about. In the Lambert and Associates report, it states that there are 3.1, there are no large-scale unstable spots. However, on the CS, or what's it called, CGS, there are 9 small-scale unstable spots. Can these 9 small unstable spots grow into large scale unstable spots?
If the future development does not take their condition into account, possibly. So that's why we would like to see individual site-specific studies prior to any structures being built. So right now, the small spots, the 9 small spots, they've been subject to what they're going to be subjected to for decades, maybe centuries. And that's where they are. Now, if people come along and just go willy-nilly changing things on the project, they could get worse. That's why we don't want people to go willy-nilly changing things. That's why everybody is saying, let's take a look at this. Let's look at the global stability. Let's make sure drainage is taken care of. We don't want things getting worse. So with proper design on a lot by lot basis, as people are proposing their site improvements, we take a look at all those and make sure that they will not get worse. And they will probably in the long run be more stable due to better site engineering, better site drainage, things like that.
Okay, I have a follow-up question. So let me try to compose it here for a minute. So in that letter from CGS, it states that these 9 small scale unstable spots were not identified in your report originally, but had surfaced after that. What's your comment to that?
I really only looked for large scale slope instability in my study. It's not uncommon to have little tiny superficial small scale failures in anywhere where there's inclinations. So that's one of the reasons why we say do a site-specific study, so those don't turn anything bigger. The main purpose of our global site stability analysis was to make sure that Mr. Watt wasn't moving forward with a project that, with the smallest change, the whole hillside would just fall off into the valley.
Okay, with your stability factor of lowest stability factor being 1.5, teetering on the edge with 9 small scale instability locations, how do I read that?
I would read it sort of, I'm trying to come up with an analogy, but I'm drawing a blank.
Well, yeah, because I'm
So-
seeing unstable soil. Oh, sorry.
It's not talking.
Okay,
Right, the small scale instabilities or small scale slips, the small scale failures that are noted, those are superficial. They could have been onset by something removing some vegetation, a rodent hole. I mean, and anything could have started the onset of these, but it's just a small area, superficial soils. Can more than likely easily be remedied with general construction techniques, and would most likely be remedied if they impacted any future lot site-specific development. It'd be like a small abrasion where you skinned your knee. That doesn't mean you have to go and need stitches. Whereas what we were looking at for the global stability was saying, is there anything on this hillside that needs to go get stitches before this site bleeds out?
That makes sense.
yes. No, I totally understand. Okay, so I'm back to this letter and it says the Lambert report 10/16/2019 that there were no indications. Well, fast forward to this CGS document, something changed in these 3 years. So will something else change in 3 more years, 5 years, 6 years? I mean, I understand you're
in
saying
our-
there's no. Oh,
Right,
go
in our
ahead.
initial letter, we didn't see any large scale slope instabilities. We didn't see any signs of large scale slope instabilities. Small, localized superficial slips or instabilities are not a sign of a large scale slope instability.
I hear what you're saying. I'm just observing a change in the slope from when you did your studies in 2019 to when this CGS letter came out, that there has been a change. That's all I'm identifying, is there has been a change in these 3 years, correct?
I wouldn't be so quick to say there was a change, but maybe since we didn't see an issue with the small scale superficial site deficiencies, since we were looking for large scale slope instabilities, the small ones weren't noted because to us they were a non-issue in the global sense of the site, whereas the Colorado Geologic Survey did make note of them. So did they exist prior to that? I would assume so. And they probably look just like they did 15, 20 years ago.
Record, it clearly says that, yes, letter says that when they looked at updated high resolution imagery of these new areas, with most of which are in the open space below development, and they say this can be mitigated with erosion control measures such as riprap to protect the driveway and roads, which we have in our new drainage.
Randy.
Daniel, you've made reference to proper grading and drainage. Have you had a chance to look at the civil plans with respect to that and your recommendations?
I've seen them. I've not studied them in depth.
What would you need to determine whether it's proper in terms of your concerns for introduction of water?
I think it would probably be in the best interest of the project if I just met with the design civil engineer and we just walked through them and made sure that we would see the removal of any surface water without introducing erosion. to make sure there weren't any areas missed or any erosion control that needs to be somewhere that isn't, things like that. And I found that's just approaching those just to sit down with the client and the design engineers, the best way to go. Just make sure there's no lingering questions. Just start at the top and work your way to the bottom. And just make sure everything's covered. It's just sort of like a secondary review.
What about pre versus post construction pros and patterns?
What we would definitely, during that review, we would want to make sure that the proposed grading doesn't interfere with any important existing drainage flows. And if it does, that those are properly handled. We don't want to see any pooling or erosion. It's sort of a fine line. We don't want to see water set too long, but we don't want to see it leave too fast.
So there should be some analysis then.
And typically that the actual analysis where the pen meets the paper is done by the general civil engineer.
Thank you. Not on that
Okay.
point, no.
Okay. Corey, Nancy, we'll come back to you, but. Pete? Nancy?
So I just wanted clarification, just because we're gonna potentially write a recommendation. Council, that you do not think that there needs additional test borings or analysis for hazard mitigation associated construction of roads A, B, and C.
Well, I think all those things need to be taken into account and looked at. But as
I don't
far
know,
as,
that's what I'm asking you.
right, but as far as the global site stability, I feel that's been covered.
But this is not the global site. This is road section A, B, and C.
Right.
Which is the
And-
global site.
and-
This is the site
And
plan.
my study and what I was hired to do was to look at the project-wide global slope stability.
But it's not a function of what you were hired to do. I know you've probably been to Mount Pleasant View, and, well, certainly you've been on the site, and you've seen that we have a number of projects that built on very steep slopes, and they have been unattended, and we've, for decades in many cases, some cases, they've actually required the town to come in and shore up walls or redo walls because they failed because of bad engineering. So you can see, have this past that we're looking at, and we really don't want to repeat that. We really want to be certain that the development that's going to be done is it's not going to get to a point where it's not viable, or it's way too expensive we're left with another scar on the hillside, the project that just sits there. I think one way to prevent that from happening is to go in with as much knowledge as possible in terms of the geology and the slope analysis. So again, if you are comfortable with what's been done so far for development of roads A, B, and C.
Nancy Jamie's had his hand up for a bit.
I want to clarify that, first of all, that there are no projects that have failed to. There are, that is from financial reasons and reasons. This, I confirmed this with Carlos many times.
That's the project failure, but the wall failures are not in that particular case, a function of poor engineering. It was a function of not being installed in conformance with the engineering that was proposed. And as part of that, through that process, we received letters from the engineer stating that it had been done, but it wasn't. And we did a soils test after, the project left. And that verified that all those things that engineer did, who was not part of any of these discussions, was what he said in his letters was not actually truly what was installed. So it was not a engineering problem. It was a installation problem. And that the
But besides-
walls were not put in according to the design of the engineer.
And
the site wasn't finished. That's part of it. Was range was wrong.
So
Once again,
Well-
sorry.
when the road construction starts, the engineer will come out and see as progress is going along many times to check on the actual cut, do testing of the soils and make sure that everything is stable. And this is what pertains to the meaning of site specific. And it relates also to a house. You cannot do a suggestions on what to do for mitigation until you have the house designed. You'll have the site specific test borings for that house. So the road in particular, the engineer will be there. He'll see it as it goes day to day.
But in designing the road, don't you need site-specific study to understand?
We,
What
that,
you're- what kind of-
Said it 3 times, 4 times.
He said he did a global site-wide study. Did you
That-
do
that's-
a
that-
site-specific
that's the
study?
process.
It's a site-specific study of the road. Right. This is a site, there's a road through it. That is the site-specific
Okay,
study of the road.
Mr. Lambert, would you characterize the study that you did, a site-specific study of the roads A, B, and C?
I would characterize that what we did, where the roadways are concerned to the global site stability, is we looked to see if the introduction of those roads would impact the global site stability. We didn't look at the shoulder of the road or the road base or any proposed key cutting or benching or any proposed construction techniques to make sure that the lifts were brought in horizontal, compacted correctly, moisture conditioned correctly. I feel all that stuff is more prudent to look at all those things after the final road alignment is approved. Then we look at the nuts and bolts of making sure that roadway is constructed properly such that it does not negatively impact the entire project. There's a lot of ways to build roads on slopes, and very few of them are correct.
So how are we going to be ensured that what's proposed is correct?
I would propose that I meet with the general site civil engineer and go over the nuts and bolts of his plans and the notes that state how the fills are going to be placed, how the material is going to be conditioned, what materials to use, things like that. Those little tiny notes on the plans that seem to be sort of boilerplate minutia. When you're in a project that has steep site slopes, they're not boilerplate minutia, they're very important. So I think we should really get down into those and make sure everything's going to be suitable and proper for this specific project.
Okay. The other question I had was, Colorado Geological Survey recommended put erosion control measures such as riprap in front of or just downslope of the road cut C in front of lots 1 through 4. Now, I don't know if you remember when you were out at the site that right at that where the road's being proposed, it's actually was already cut for an easement for overlooks sewer, so there's no trees actually right on where that road C is gonna be. But downslope of that road, there's a very thick stand of aspen trees. And I was wondering what your thoughts were on how you'd be able to incorporate riprap in that area without cutting down trees. And my concern is, I know that removing vegetation is a big slope instability trigger.
Right. Typically, what we see is native vegetation is very good at erosion control. So if the construction introduces areas where that vegetation is disturbed and it's not going to fill that role of erosion control, then a man-made erosion control system needs to be put in place, such as a riprap, or the introduction of more vegetation that is suitable to contain erosion problems. So I wouldn't say I would never, but I cannot see myself with anything I've ever witnessed suggest removing a grove of trees to put in riprap.
And with the future development of those lots, recommend having some kind of, I guess, verbiage in the covenants or homeowners association about maintaining that stand of trees to preserve the slope there and prevent further erosion.
We're nowhere near that extent of riprap to worry about trees. My riprap things are 10 feet wide, they're going right up. Don't need to run riprap clear down the hill through all the aspen trees. I've got all that stuff on the plans. With a whole grove of aspen on either, one on the uphill side, maybe this bottom side.
We have no intentions of tearing the aspen trees out. There might be a few of them right along the edge of the road that go, but it's not a major impact on anything in there.
In the past, we have had covenants attached on properties that protect trees. So if that is a concern, that's something.
Jamie, can you use my
Jamie?
microphone, please? Thank you.
Also, CGS had not seen or known that there was already a drainage plan. They were just given your Lambert's reports. So civil engineer Norm has done an extensive drainage plan, which should handle any problem.
Okay, well, to try to move things on, you know, I think we should consider probably a condition of approval would be having Lambert meet with the civil
Yes.
engineer.
Yes.
So we'll do all that too in the final phase to pull the notes together for the final construction plans.
So Carlos,
If I may, real quick, what I heard from Daniel, and of course I'm paraphrasing and I'm using his terms, nuts and bolts of roads done it. Once, you know, a lot of that's done once the final road alignment is approved is what I heard. And usually, I would say the proper stage for that in our process would probably be after preliminary plan. It's like once they have preliminary plan, which is the next step with the council, then the applicant should have a strong level of comfort that those road alignments are solid. But we would condition that until that last step with those discussions. An additional analysis, nuts and bolts, if you will, be taken into account at that time.
And that include construction notes that you usually end up with 1 or 2 pages of construction notes. Concrete, paving, soil,
use the mic when you talk, please.
soil and all that will be on the final plans.
Okay,
I just had one clarification question.
okay.
So Daniel, this is for you, I think. How do I interpret the word theoretical? Or I don't know if I'm saying that right, because a lot of your comments are based on theory. What kind of buffer does theory have? I mean, when I read theoretical and then I read 1.5 stability, I'm not sure the leeway to that, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. That's a good question. So pretty much everything that engineers do is theoretical. We look at a sample of the site soils, and of that we test even less. But we do enough to get a general idea of the site soils. And then, we didn't do 600 or 700 test borings, so we don't know the exact, down to the millimeter of the soil interface changes and things like that. So a lot of it is an estimated theoretical number. Now, one thing that Lambert Associates does that isn't necessarily standard of the industry is when we determine the soil strength parameters, before we run that test, we fail that sample. So most of our soil strength parameters are determined through what's called a direct shear test. And we will take that soil sample and we'll fail it, the failure plan where it wants to fail. And then we will return it, and then we will test that pre-failed interface with different normal loads to determine different P's and C's for different strains. So basically what that does is we assume that along this failure plan, it's already failed, as opposed to looking at the ultimate strength parameters for those site soils. And so what that does is it sort of gives our numbers just a little bit more of a conservative buffer.
Okay, thank you.
Carlos.
Number 3, correct? 3, compliant driveways be shown that can be solely accessed from the individual lots they serve. This cannot be done in the proposed lot configurations. The lot line should be adjusted to accommodate compliant driveways. The analysis should also be performed for the low density multifamily lots, and the Crested Butte Fire Protection District shall comment on access being shown off the hammer sack. So that last item we've already addressed in topic number 1. Civil engineer Norm Whitehead has done some additional analysis included in Exhibit E as part of your plan. In that, he shows just general driveway access, all to the only serving the individual lots. He included a plan, a general plan again for the multifamily lots. And of course, you all know Norm, he is here and can comment on his additional drawings analysis based on the request.
Thanks. Lisa, do you have any questions about this?
Now, I saw the map, the new map with the driveways, or the proposed. Yeah, okay.
You?
No, good.
So basically, what I did was get rid of the driveways that came into the side of the buildings. Like we talked last time, I said I was going to try to see if I could lower the road and the home sites, or raise the road, lower the home sites to where they could all pull in front, which would, practically speaking, you could get 8 parking spots per house into that now. So there's off-road parking so I think it's a better plan than the first one with the driveways coming up. And it's a 4% drive to the house because it's short enough that we can't go steeper than 4%. So I think it's kind of a better option than we had the first round.
Okay, thanks. Number 4. Oh, Jamie, I'm sorry.
I'm just wondering if Lambert needs to still be in the meeting. Do you think there'll be questions?
I don't remember how the questions progress, so that would be a better question for Carlos.
There's number 6, snow storage plan. 7 is Norm. If we feel that 3 has been, or 2 has been adequately addressed, then I think we could probably, I don't think Daniel's presence is necessary.
Okay. Nancy, do you have any other questions for Daniel?
I just have one.
Well, let's answer this question first.
Okay.
Okay. So yeah, I think we can cut Daniel loose.
All right. Well, thank you very much for including me in the meeting. Thank you for the questions.
Yep, thanks for being here.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thanks.
So we're gonna try to work through this in the order that it's in our packet.
Yeah,
You-
no, it was just a challenge.
Carlos.
All right, number 4, the applicant work with staff on a revised housing plan that addresses the town's concerns, most notably a process where the community, most notably a process where the community housing units, I'm not sure what that's supposed to say. I think it's, I think what I neglected to put in there is a process for the timing of the development of the community housing units. That's what that was, I believe, intended to say. The applicant shall also work with the town to develop a deed restriction for the units based on the town deed restriction template. Is there a little brief presentation?
Yeah.
Yeah, so,
I put a brief one in the packet.
yeah, I mean, exhibit F is in your packet. If it's okay with you.
Yeah.
I'll just say we've spent, between Hillary and I, we've spent a lot of time with Jamie, working on this plan, a lot of back and forth. And a lot of the discussion was centered around the timing and how that works. And we, you know, our concern was just certain ways it was set up, you know, would hinder the project as a whole, but also hinder the development of the community housing units. The concern on the applicant side was too much of a financial burden on the front end. And I think what we have here as part of this proposal is a compromise that I think apparently that could work for us. And it sounds like it works for the applicant. And I think he can, still some little things to work out, but the general aspects of it, the big picture stuff, I think we're on a good path, but I'll pass it off to Jamie and let him get a little more in depth with it.
Do you think we need to pull the plot plan up to identify where it's built?
Whatever you want, we
7
can.
and 8.
Yeah.
Probably.
General site plan.
Yeah.
That should be exhibit.
I don't have a pointer, but we're going to be talking about buildings 7 and 8, which are on the lower left. 2 on the lower left.
Sorry.
Sorry.
There we go.
Okay. Well, we have met with staff and come up with a compromise, a plan that will accomplish the goal of prioritizing the building of the 3 community housing units as requested by the town council. Through the sketch plan process, it was expressed by the town council that it would be okay to have the community housing units built concurrently with the free market units based on project phasing and timing of building the community housing units. We are instructed to provide metrics that will be used to coordinate overall site development with community house triggers to ensure community housing is completed prior to or concurrent with a certain level of completion of free market units. This process follows the rationale that the actual physical construction of buildings is what triggers the need for more workers, thus more housing, not the sale of land. We have spent a lot of time working with the town staff on a compromise to try and provide a solution and timeline that would be satisfactory to both the council and developer. The compromise we came up with together will provide the requested metrics and triggers that not only provide safeguards for the town to get the community housings built the fastest, but would also allow the developer the traditional logical opportunity to counter development expenses. So the plan. The first trigger to initiate the need for community housing would be the issuance of a building permit for the first free market unit somewhere on the property. This would trigger the requirement to get the triplex on lot 7, which would include 2 community housing units, to be completed before or concurrent with the completion of that first free market unit. This is a fair initial step that would ensure early and fastest route to complete 2 community housing units, thus being a 2-for-1 arrangement in the town's favor. Because the triplex will have a free market unit within it. The second trigger would be the issuance of a building permit on a 3rd free market unit. This trigger would initiate the requirement to get the triplex on lot 8, which will include the 3rd and final community housing unit, to be completed before or concurrent with the completion of the 3rd free market unit. It's kind of confusing. Thus fulfilling the community housing requirement, a 3-for-3 arrangement. Addressing the financial security for the town, the construction of the building on lot 7 would be contracted and bonded by the developer, Alpine Construction, or a mutually agreed upon alternate contractor. The contractor on the building of lot 8 would also be bonded in the same fashion as the requirement for lot number 7. Another form of security to the town is that COs would not be issued for any more than 3 free market units until the 3 community housing units obtain their COs. So to recap, the COs would be issued, no COs would be issued after 1 free market unit is built until the lot number 7 building with 2 community housing units within is completed. The building on lot 8 with the 3rd community housing unit would be completed before or concurrent with the completion of a 3rd free market unit. Thus, by this plan, the community housing requirement would be prioritized and built the fastest per the request of council and staff. A little confusing. Any questions?
Corey? Question? Andy?
No. Sounds good.
Thank you.
I've got
Oh,
comments, 2 comments. Well, question. That will mean that the designs for those units are gonna have to be done pretty upfront and have to achieve design reviews, you know, at least concurrently with the design review of the first
right.
building.
Yeah.
Okay. My other comment is more related to the covenants that describe the voting within the association as being 1 vote per lot. And how does that work with the affordable housing and, well, with the duplex and triplex lots?
Those duplexes would have a vote and it's split between that is considered a.
So it's per lot, not per unit.
So.
Who gets to
so how
vote
does
it?
that
Yeah,
work?
how do they determine?
Yeah.
who
Which
gets
of
to
the
vote?
3 they are? Arm wrestling?
For me. Carlos?
Number 5, additional analysis to be provided that looks at any potential avalanche hazard created by the road design. We also recommend that this letter be stamped by the engineer. Included in your packet as far as Exhibit G is an additional letter from licensed engineer Arthur Mears, who did some further analysis and found, and this is from my report, but taken from his letter, which is included in your packet, Exhibit G, mitigation of snow avalanche hazard will not be required based off of the installation of the road. There's 2 letters basically say development don't in where they're proposing the development doesn't create any avalanche hazards. We asked them to look at it again with the installation of the road, and again he found no creation of snow slide, snow avalanche hazard.
And he stamped it.
And he stamped it, yep.
Okay. Anybody have any questions about that? Let's move on.
6, a license agreement be entered into with the town for the portions of the road that cross town right of way. Colorado Geological Survey should also comment on the snow storage plan as part of the recommended condition number 2 detailed above. The town has similar license agreements across the town. There's retaining walls, what other? Landscaping,
Signage.
parking spaces in some of our older subdivisions that exist in town right away. So we have several license agreements across town that address these types of matters. So it's a pretty boilerplate type agreement, typical agreement. We've worked with the applicant on just massaging the one for this particular case, that's Exhibit H. But we're not at the stage where we're going to be approving any license agreement. We need to have this plan ultimately approved before there is any need for the license agreement. So you'll see there, any final approval shall include a condition that the license agreement be entered into prior to commencement of any construction.
Questions? Randy?
No.
Correct. Okay.
Number 7, a third-party civil engineer analyze if no retaining walls would be necessary for the installation of feeder road. I think when we first started this process, the approach the applicant took was to try and design a project that didn't have any retaining walls. And I think that was based off of some of the prior comments that have been received, in general, maybe not necessarily from the town, but from members of the public, of a desire not to have a access that's has a lot of, or that requires a lot of retainage. So there might have, so I think it's worth noting that when they came in with this design, that was what they were trying to accomplish. And we discussed this a little bit at our last meeting, but we did have Tyler Harpel of SGM review that specifically to retaining walls, and we met with Jamie, Norm, Tyler, and myself. Were you there?
I wasn't at that one.
We're met, and that kind of expanded into why retaining walls might actually be beneficial to the site for some of the reasons why it was maybe thought by some that retaining walls are bad. It's like they're actually minimize the amount of disturbance on the site. So Tyler's letter is in there. I think Norm's site plan shows the location of 3 walls.
The one that we talked about at the meeting.
Or can you use my phone, please?
So the main plan only shows the 2, but what it also has on it is, in order to get the slope in above Road A, we got to strip clear up to Hunter Hill Road. So it's a huge area of just stripping, and we're only talking about a 1 or 2 foot difference in depth of dirt just to get that 2 to 1 in there. And so we talked about putting a retaining wall on the uphill side of Road A, like I did on Road C. And by doing that, it eliminates disturbing all of that Hunter Hill slope, except for where we're building the wall. And I think that's a good plan. In the rendering that I did, I have that wall that's on Road C, and it does not show up in the rendering because of the slope you're hooking up from Gothic Road. It's buried back on the other side of the road. Road A is even higher up, so a 6 foot high wall in there you won't see from anywhere unless you're driving down Hunter Hill Road. At least you won't see it from Gothic Road. So I did another plan showing the impact of that, and basically we just stay off of that slope on Hunter Hill Road as much as we can.
And what are the height predictions of those walls?
I'm thinking they're only going to be 6 feet.
And maybe-
Well, that one will go anywhere from well, maybe 2 feet to 6 feet, and it might be 200 feet long. But I think it'll just leave all that grass and stuff. We don't have to revegetate it and look at that getting revegetated and stuff, so.
And as part of that analysis with Tyler, it did expand on to looking at turning radiuses and maybe some of the benefits of that. And, you know, so some of what was it, the turning radius on the entry, was it the entry? The first
Well,
two turning
yeah.
radiuses were the ones that we slightly adjusted, you know, a couple of inches. You know, when we moved them even so slightly, we got additional comment from the fire district on there, and it meets, you know, I think the fire district's reg is 40.
41 on the inside.
Yeah. So we're still meeting their regs. Just the only thing of note is that you know, when we made those adjustments, not every drawing in your packet depicts that change. So just a comment for me that all drawings should be adjusted prior to consideration of preliminary plan by the town council. And I don't know, Norm, if you want to address a little bit more on those. If you feel
Well, and
that
then
the
it's,
turning radius-
the radiuses are real minor. I changed one from 50 foot to 51 and one from 48 to 51. So 3 feet. And that's about a thickness of the line on the plan. So it really didn't affect anything. It didn't affect the drainage. It didn't affect the reclamation plan. It didn't change any of the snow. And I also looked at when I did the 6-foot retaining wall along Road A, as I already had that very little snow storage on that side of the road. Most of it goes over on the other side of the road, so that didn't impact the snow storage either. So I think we're in pretty good shape there.
Questions?
I'd like to see the
Yeah, I've already drew one. I just sent that in today,
Yeah.
but I've done one, so it's available. And
probably two, the ones.
right, yeah, and I didn't think I'd need, after last Thursday, could turn anything in, but they said, go ahead and turn it in. So I updated all the plans with the new radiuses, and then I did one plan with that retaining wall in there.
And then I'm looking at the rendering right now, and I'd really like to see that retaining wall. On the
You won't see it on the render.
I can see where the Hunter Hill cut is, and then I can see where Road A cut is, and isn't the public Road A in Hunter Hill?
Yeah, but what's happening is you're looking uphill from Hunter. And then the Road A goes horizontally. So you're looking up at a slope like this. Well, 6 feet doesn't get up into that view plane.
So you're confident that it's.
Yeah, and the lower wall, the wall on Road C, you can't see, and it is drawn in there.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah,
I can
so,
be able to see it.
and you could probably go 10 feet high because you're looking at a steeper angle on Road A and still not see that wall from Gothic. It's such a steep angle that by the time you go all the way across the road, you won't see that 6 foot height. Your line of sight's up over the top of that wall.
The turning
Yeah.
radii, the town code issue.
It wouldn't be a variance consideration, it would be a modification, and because our turning radius is 67. Yeah, I'm not sure where, I mean, that's our requirement. And you know, we talked to the fire district about that, and so basically, I think what we could do is it would require a modification. But we should be able to do that as part of, if we were inclined to do it, you know, as part of by approving the road plan, you would be effectively be approving that modification. And if you wanted any kind of recommendation, or any kind of condition, you could, it wouldn't be a condition, but you could have a statement of that in any kind of motion.
Okay, well, I guess I'm just kind of leery is because we have a code for a reason. Like this radius turn 51 versus 67, it's too tight a radius, or because the roads, the feeder roads can be a 9% grade. And that's what we have in this proposal, and I can't say anything, but we all know that a 9% grade in the winter, it's icy and snowy, is going to be very difficult to get up unless you have chains. So I'm wondering with this one versus 67, why is it a town code?
Where that number comes from, honestly, I can't speak to. I just know it's the number in there.
It has to be related to some sort of safety issue, like,
We stole it from somebody else.
yeah.
Well, I honestly, I just don't know, and I would defer to a civil on, and we did discuss that with Tyler as well. And because Tyler, that was one of the things we discussed with these turning radius changes, and it's a little bit probably out of my bailiwick to comment on. If I knew the answer, I could answer where that number came from, but how all that works in a, practical and engineering sense, I might defer.
I feel more comfortable. I don't understand what a modification.
Well, the way our code is written, I can't answer that question. Certain things such as, setbacks, building heights,
Floor,
or
floor.
floor area, that's not one we would typically. Any kind, well, but that still count, any kind of zoning regulation. If you can demonstrate a physical hardship on the site, there's a process for you to grant a variance. So for example, if there's a major drainage that runs through the center of your lot, you could apply for a setback variance because you want to, you're being forced to move your house due to a physical limitation on the lot. But the way our code is written for driveways, I mean, you're having one of these in this very next agenda item, and we've had several of them in the last however long, sets up a process where you don't need to go through the variance process for a driveway modification, provided we receive written comment from the fire district that, it can still be accessed by emergency vehicles. So it's an actual process written into the code specific for driveways.
This is a feeder road.
But driveways and feeder roads, they're both in the same. The only difference between a driveway serves 2 units or less, and a feeder road serves 3 to 15.
And it wasn't clear to me what the hardship was, why you can't do fire town code.
What would the impact of a 67-foot turning radius be?
Yeah, I mean, it would push our slopes, our road slopes down the hill probably 50 more.
So we're
Basically, the fill on C road is double.
So we're potentially making it more hazardous on this road. Construction and engineering required.
That, and we're within fire departments. We haven't asked for any more than what the fire department needs. That's also what the county.
Back to Carlos.
Moving to item 8. Proposed feeder road shall be shown on the map and preliminary site plan as a public access easement. Exhibit E on the preliminary road plan has a note stating that the roadway is a public access easement. I just have the comment that, so they did attempt to satisfy that. I just have a comment that the final plat shall include the note along with labeling the actual road as a public access easement on the drawing, as people who sometimes have to look for those types of things. The first place we're gonna look is in the physical location on the map. I think that's a very minor, Norm might have already made that change. I did get a
Yeah, it's
whole
on the plan that-
set of changes.
That should be in the packet, and then I also have it on.
Yeah.
Should be well covered.
Yeah, and not to go back, but we can go back, is I did receive earlier this afternoon a revised set of drawings. If you wanted to see the retaining walls
I
shown
would
on
like
the
you to
map.
send those to us.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I got them. I just opened the email.
Yeah, no,
They came in, an hour or so
I think
ago.
there's some interest there.
But if
so-
you'd like to see them now, if Norm could just tell us which particular drawing of the set of 12 it is, we can pull it up on the screen.
It would be. All on it, I think.
That was the one that I just had up, actually. Go. Right here.
Yeah.
So I'll highlight the, just make it all to see.
If you notice this drawing compared to the one that was turned in earlier, all the contours stop right at the wall and they do not go clear up the 100.
The proposed final grade contours.
Yeah. And the wall is a lot smaller than what she circled. That's the area the wall's in, but the wall is.
Yeah, the wall is right here.
It's, yeah. And what we're proposing is like a laid back wall, about a 1-to-1 with boulders and stuff.
Norm, can you use the microphone? I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah. It's just that other people on the meeting came here without.
Oh, okay.
And then we don't have a record. We want to make sure we get our meeting minutes.
Yeah, that's fine. But anyways, we're proposing a rock wall. It'll be close to a 1-to-1 or a little bit steeper, and it should be able to have grow vegetation and stuff in it, so it won't be, we're not proposing concrete walls or anything like that.
I have an updated site plan map, the one that has the old driveway locations and not the driveway
Yeah,
locations.
I think I got, I'm not sure I sent the site plan, but I got the road plans and the drainage reclamation. Landscaping didn't change much. But I think that overall one I didn't get done, but I'll send update on that.
So back to 8, I just wanted to go back to that since we did have the drawings for you to see. Back to 8 on the easement. Wrap that one up.
Okay, anybody got any questions about that? No. Just quick housekeeping, how much time should we plan for the next agenda item?
What's that? How much time should we plan for 47 West?
Oh.
Is that what you're asking? Yeah.
Half hour is a guess. I mean, that's kind of gonna be driven by you guys.
I would say plan on at least an hour. So I think we're doing pretty good.
Okay,
Yeah, if we can,
I was thinking an hour.
I mean, our
Okay.
our unofficial policy is to target,
Yeah.
8 o'clock.
Yep.
So if we could get through these last, 4 items, in 40 minutes, including discussion and anything else.
See where we go.
I think we'll be doing okay.
Okay.
So on to 9, get additional, comment from the Mount Crestview Water and Sanitation District on water availability for the proposed development. Additional comment has not been received from the district since our last meeting. Existing submittals include the availability of service and acceptance of sanitary sewer analysis. We did meet with Mike today and I just asked him that question. Is there any concerns with water availability on this site? And he said, no, the scale of the the development does not cause any concern. I was like, would you be willing to send me an email to that effect? And he said, yes, he would, but as of yet, I have not received it.
So we also did submit today, the 2000 or the December 2020, when we were going for inclusion within the district. And in that memo, the staff memo from the district says, the district has sufficient water rights to supply the inclusion of the property. GVA Engineering conducted a project needs assessment report for the district in 2019 and concluded that the district has adequate absolute water rights for at least the next 20 years and beyond. Resource Engineering has conducted studies for the district that have determined that acquiring the 300 acre feet in Long Lake as part of the Upper Gunnison River Water Conservancy District agreement would more than satisfy the entire district at full build out. The district also owns 700 acre feet of additional water rights for North Village Reservoir. The district has discretion to accept a monetary payment in lieu of water rights as a condition of inclusion. So they were looking at that time to do a monetary payment in lieu, but they concluded that there was sufficient water in 2020, in December of 2020, within the district for the town at full build out. These additional units are not going to push that over the edge.
I received that letter this afternoon. I just have it pulled up. I can confirm that what Mike just read is a direct quote from that letter.
I'm guessing he was reading it as well.
Yeah, well, but I'm confirming what he was reading from is in fact a letter from the Mount Crescent View Water and Sanitation District.
Anybody have any questions?
I guess I'd like to see the email response from Mike.
Yeah, I asked him if I just, hey, if I sent you an email, is there enough? Could you respond? Yes, he said, would. I sent that email right after we got finished with lunch and it's not in my inbox as of yet. But Mark, make a note. And if everyone agrees, that can be something.
Well, I mean, we've had challenges with them in the past and, you know, we would like to be able to have that part of a packet going forward.
Yeah, I mean, the challenge is Mike has this general letter that you'll see as part of every PUD that we have coming up, and he's been instructed that this should be the response to that question. And we talked about that today. And you know, in general, water availability is not the concern from a district. It's characterizing. Do you remember putting on the spot water?
I don't remember his exact characterization.
Yeah, but it wasn't a supply issue per se. Yeah, and on this size, we're talking how many units? 4 and 12 units. It's not gonna affect their system. But I can work to try and get that in writing, but it has proven to be a little more challenging than it typically would be, but I did specifically ask that question if he would respond. He said he would, so.
Well, if
we'll
you've got
see.
what Mike just read, part of a public record as well, right?
What, yes, from their inclusion application.
Then maybe that,
was the staff report from the.
maybe that moves forward.
We knocked 2 units off of that also.
Yeah,
I'm just trying to, you know, build a case at town council because they don't get their hands dirty with this kind of stuff very often. Okay, nobody else had any questions on that?
A10, get updated road profile and cross sections and center line analysis and updated grading contours on road B. C, preliminary road plan exhibit I. The original packet that went on Friday didn't include those updated cross sections. Nancy pointed me out those that they were missing. And so those were resent out on Monday, I believe it was. So those should be in your packet now as exhibit I with that information. And again, Norm put those together and he's answering questions if there's any comments or concerns.
Okay.
There'll be a new set when they forward you guys what you got today.
Microphone, please.
Those have all been updated. with the new road radiuses, and everything. So it should be pretty close.
And what's from what was in the packet to what has slightly changed, what's the level of adjustment in those?
You wouldn't have seen I had to zoom in to almost a line thickness to see them on the cross section. So those radius, 3 foot on a radius, didn't make that much difference on road B particularly.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions about this? About the road section? Okay.
The plan set was due last Thursday.
Have a plan set that's gonna go to the town.
Yeah, that's what we're trying to do.
That's one of
Yeah.
the comments we have, is that the drawings be adjusted to show these. turn
Any
lanes.
of the changes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And, what we would probably recommend, if you are inclined to make a recommendation, that we detail everything that the planning commission is looking for, and allow us the opportunity to craft that recommendation, so you can standard practice now, but just a reminder, so we
Yeah.
can
Rather than trying to make a motion.
exactly on kind of on the fly. So that could include in the next submittal, give us
I have a little list.
give us the update, make sure all the
Sarah's
drawings are
on
updated. It sounds like they are, they just couldn't get them to us within the deadline.
The list maker is absent.
Yeah.
Most makers think.
Ready for 11?
Yep.
11, provide existing drainage pattern and how it will be altered with proposed road and a detail on the proposed dissipators. This is a new plan from that Norm again put together. It's Exhibit K in your packet, and it includes the details for two dissipators types.
I think this item 7 and 2 are all related. So when we start looking at that list, I'd like to have this addressed as well.
In what way?
Well, in terms of a drainage report that's going to satisfy Lambert for item 2. SGM letter in item 7 refers to erosion control. We don't yet have a erosion control plan. So I think there's a number of things here that are all related.
And I believe that exists as well. It just has not been.
It was submitted 2 submittals ago.
Was it?
Yeah, because we had all that put together when we sent it to the state.
Yeah.
So they could review it, and they've seen, I had it on a plan before, and I don't think the drainage and erosion control plan was submitted. But with that detail and stuff, we have submitted and the state has looked at it. And the basic thing on what I'm doing is I'm not letting any water sit in a detention pond and seep into the ground. I have it to where it hits a membrane and then it flows back out onto the slope, but it does it as a gradual method that would come close to duplicating the normal runoff going down the hill. So that's what the water dissipators are. And they're lined with riprap, and then they'll be buried or planted with grass. So you'll just see a slight swale there, but it's allowed to seep in and then come back out on top of the existing ground.
Yes.
Number 12, covenants, design guidelines, and subdivision improvement agreement are available for consideration. Draft covenants have been submitted and reviewed by staff. That's Exhibit L. Just some staff comments. While not required, staff recommends that limitations for short-term rentals within the subdivision be included, as it is anticipated that this will be a topic of discussion for the town council. Staff also recommends that the language in sections 1.28 and 10.5 be improved to be specific to the limitations of HOA dues and special assessments. That's in particular to how those HOA dues and special assessments can be assessed to the community housing units. We don't want to put the occupants and owners of those units at a financial disadvantage in some cases with the voting structure to get special assessed out where their units no longer become affordable. So that's the basis for that comment there. What they have in there right now is more of a generalized statement, and what I'm asking for is something just more specific. I did receive an updated draft this afternoon, but I have not opened them or looked at them. Yeah.
Yeah, so what the language says is that the maximum amount of HOA dues and assessments can be no greater than what is contained in the community housing plan and the community housing ordinance and the community housing plan for Mount Crested Butte. So, and that's based upon the class of unit, and that's based upon a certain percentage. So if you guys change those percentages within the community housing plan or within the ordinance or in the actual zoning section, that would automatically change those amounts. So we tied directly to your ordinance then to set, like I know in Prospect, it couldn't be more than 10%. And that we don't know what that number is. And in Prospect, it's $10 because they don't have assessments. So we've tied it to your ordinance. I'm happy to look at any kind of language on that. We're aware of the issue on short-term rentals, and we're just reserving that for town council to see if they want to do it. We're not prohibiting them. So they would be allowed, but they would still have to go through process. Because if we prohibit them in the declaration, they're gone forever, essentially. And then finally, the design guidelines have all been deleted. We've deleted all references to those. So everything will conform with town code and your building process.
Yeah, and that was at the recommendation of me. It's like they're going for straight zoning, low density multifamily, single family. We staff don't need an extra layer of review for specific design guidelines. It would all be governed by our standard design policies, which each and every one of you are very familiar with. If there were any specific design guidelines that the applicant wants as part of their development, they can build them into the covenants. And when they're built into the covenants, it becomes the responsibility of their design review to ensure that those are put in place. So that was the basis for removal of the design guidelines. And that's another, that's the underlying portion there. And then to the draft subdivision improvement agreement, they have required a draft subdivision improvement agreement. Although it's not required until final plan, it makes sense for it to be. It kind of goes back to some of that nuts and bolts soil stuff. Is like you need to do an assessment of what the costs of construction is going to be to develop into that SIA, and it's not time well spent to do that until you know what is actually on the verge of being approved. So that's why it's a provision of final plan in the code. And so my recommendation would just be to leave it that way. And once we get through preliminary plan, we'll know we'll have a very good idea and a strong assumption that the improvements as designed will be what will be presented. And then we can make those assessments for engineering estimates of cost that are built into the SIA at that time. That's my comments on item 12.
Lisa, do you have any questions or comments on 12?
I do. I have a clarification. Mike, you said something about covenants and short-term rentals. Did you say if we write it into the covenants, it's a done deal, or what were you talking about?
At this time, there is no prohibition on short-term rentals. We understand the issue and we'll discuss it at the council level based upon the town policy of the council at the time. If we write in a prohibition at this time of short-term rentals, it's very difficult to do that without a full amendment of the covenants and approval by the town. So we're leaving that option open right now, but we understand the issue. We're going to discuss it with council. And then depending on the policy of council on preliminary plan, we'll make an adjustment to the language.
Basically saying if it's in the covenants, then it is
they're done.
Right, okay, so I'm thinking of a situation where Wild Horse at Prospect had allowed short-term rentals and they changed their mind and voted it out. So it can be changed. it's
Can be
just a
changed in the future, for
cumbersome-
sure, and we've had a bunch of subdivisions do that
Okay.
throughout the county. But if we put it in initially, it's gonna be very difficult to get it out.
Gotcha.
And what we've done as a commission on at least one previous application, is similar to what we're recommending here is, we're gonna make a specific comment on that for the council to take that into consideration, but there was, at least in this particular application, a consensus that it's a topic better discussed and determined by the town council.
And we have had other subdivisions who have put the issue to a ballot and it has failed. So they have tried to prohibit short-term rentals and the homeowners say, no, this is how I pay for my place. Pay for my kids' college, so
To amend covenants, it's a 67%.
67%, and some of them have not been able to get that.
So why does the town care so much about the short-term rental? I mean, why would they get in the middle of what an HOA might decide?
This just affects on community housing, myriad of things, that the council has discussed, multiple times. And so, my comment is based on an estimation, a prediction, an educated guess, if you will, on what the, that it'll be a topic of conversation.
Oh,
with
it
the
will be.
town council.
I mean, it's a pendulum. You guys are still a resort community. You need heads and beds to make this place work. But we also just recognize that this is a developing town and community as well. It's more than that it used to be.
Well said. Anything else? Reed?
I'm just looking at Article 9, talking about the Hunter Ridge Homeowners Association. Maybe I'm missing it, it's somewhere else, but I don't see a paragraph anywhere that says when or if they're going to meet as a homeowners association or when the board of directors is going to meet.
That would all. That will all be in the formation documents. That's usually in the bylaws.
Okay,
So as part of the final plan submittal, we'd submit articles of incorporation and bylaws, which will set meeting dates, organizational minutes, and set up that nonprofit corporation. So usually with these types of homeowners associations on the mountain, they like to meet in the summer when people are here or over Christmas break. So that's usually the preference of the board.
and do you anticipate that you will allow participation by electronic means?
Under Kiowa, we are required to do that. I know some homeowners are trying to buck that, but under Kiowa, you're required to require electronic participation.
And the other thing I come back to that was kind of stated earlier, which I'm still kind of mulling over in my mind, was when you have the each lot has one vote, but you've got 3 units on the lot. And I'm not sure there was really an answer as to who gets to vote that one vote.
It's going to be the HOA for that unit. So if the triplex they either set it up as a Kiowa community or they just do it through a party wall agreement, they would have to decide to cast that vote. And I know it's not a perfect world, but we have this problem with small subdivisions in general. If I have a 4-lot subdivision, you can end up with tie votes. So what most of the mixed use communities do is that HOA votes. So they need to figure out either through their board or through the members what their decision is going to be on an issue, and then they get a vote. But each community housing unit, their vote, they would get an equal vote within that unit. If it's set up as a condominium regime, it's going to be based on square footage. So they may have a lower vote just based upon their square footage. If they do it as a simple party wall, it's going to be 1 person, 1 vote, or 1 unit, 1 vote. So.
Just to kind of piggyback on what Reed says, I mean, I think with 8 lots and with this setup, really kind of set the duplex and triplexes up against the single family homes. And I would encourage you to maybe spend some brain cells and see if there's not a better way to do that.
We're happy to look at that, to reallocate the vote. There's a balance there because we don't want the multifamilies dictating what's coming out on the single family side and vice versa. But by the way, the multifamilies are going to be constructed with preloading these affordable housing units, they're going to be in place before a lot of the single families. So there's gonna be some give and take through there.
I've been president of an HOA for God knows how long. and
Bless your heart.
It's amazing, but issues come up. Nancy?
I'm looking at, rentals in the- no, staff had- staff had in
The deed restriction will not allow short-term rental of the community housing. It has to be long-term rental
has to be a long-term rental.
or owner occupied.
Then I'm looking, I don't know if it's exactly in the building envelopes, they're not.
They're governed by the zoning.
Correct.
And so it's gonna be the setbacks for the particular zoning district.
Okay, and so I'm looking at, I think it's exhibit E. Driveway, the revised driveway, and parking. And I'm looking at the dash, there in lots, 6, 5, 7. There's some dashed squares. There's, squares or rectangles that are solid lines. Kind of confused what this is displaying. Are the dashed lines the setbacks area?
No, I did not get those off of those lots. So that was what we were gonna define as a building envelope, and I think after the last meeting, we're getting rid of building envelopes. And then the small rectangles inside of those are the actual buildings sitting there that I used in the rendering and stuff. So that's a footprint of a building that will equal about 8,500 square feet.
Okay, so they don't really represent anything? Not an official, it's not a building envelope, it's,
No, it's just the footprints that I used for the renderings. So I've got a 3-story building sitting on those. I forget what my maximum height was 33 feet or something like that, but they're just showing up on these drawings as a representation.
okay, that was a confusing thing.
So if you're looking at the rendering, you can also get an idea of what the shape of those buildings are from the plan view.
Lot number 1, and I guess we don't have building envelopes there, but it would appear that the driveway is sitting on top of
Yeah.
that house. So is that gonna require some kind of special?
That easement is the dominant estate, so they need.
Yeah.
place.
But their parking area in front of the house is still off of that driveway.
Is off of that driveway?
Yeah,
I guess any application for inclusion with the Mount Crescent View Water and Sanitation District will have a strong talking point around that.
well, it's no different than the road sitting on top of it. I mean, if you have to fix the sewer, you're tearing up the road. So if you have to fix the sewer in that part, you're tearing up a driveway.
It's
You
not
just don't wanna
uncommon
put a
for
house
that
on
to
it.
be under the road.
Right.
No, this is theoretical anyway.
Right.
That's all I have.
Okay, Randy,
I didn't have anything more.
Corey. Okay,
That was a little bit of a nice segue there, Nancy, for number 13. Is the rendering. Receive a rendering of the proposed development from the Gothic Road View Corridor. Boxes of the scale of structures, heights, impacted view from road. That's kind of that plan view he provided with those rectangular proposed building sites. And that's included in your packet as part of Exhibit M.
any questions about the rendering?
I'm getting to it, so I'll have to pass it.
It's on the big screen if you.
Oh, I don't, yeah, go. over there.
Randy?
No.
Corey, anything?
I don't think so. I don't think I have it.
Putting green in the middle.
Let him know.
And all of those structures are just under 8,500 square feet. So I put the biggest you can get on there on the rendering, just so you would see the maximum impact. And then the light green's the road. You can see coming down in there.
Have it showing that the trees are not there, but they're gonna be there.
Yeah, that's just how the,
This is how it
yeah,
has
we
to
just-
do on that.
those, if you look at it, those trees are in front. But by overlaying it that way, you'd have to spend another 5 hours putting those trees back in there on that rendering. I didn't do that.
So that brings up an interesting question. For your declarations and stuff, I think, is there any way to mandate those home sites that you know they're going to want to remove those trees? You just
Not
know
on
it.
the other side of the road.
They're gonna want it.
Well, they want to, but yeah, I would say don't let them in our covenants
I've
or,
had to run
whatever.
people out of my yard with a chainsaw.
yeah, they're in
I'm
the,
just
no, well,
bringing this
they're
up.
in the lots,
Those are some pretty.
within the
major trees.
setbacks, but I think we could put a restrictive area in there where you can't disturb the existing
I would-
vegetation.
I would encourage you to maybe consider some language in sale documents or something
Yeah.
that.
Those are the trees that we were talking about, not taking
Those
out
aren't
the
their
whole grove.
trees.
Yeah. No, I
Put the
agree.
living
I,
room on the
I would,
third
I
floor.
think they would be better left there and, on the downside hill of the road. On the upside, it's that smaller leftover from the whole grove and it'll
Yeah,
probably go
So
away.
They're gonna have a landscaping requirement.
Yeah, yeah,
and-
so,
Better they work around them, the less money they have to spend on that.
right.
May I pose a question?
Yeah.
For that? Mike, for a preservation of something like that to run with a property, for that to come up on a title commitment, what would the
I think
mechanism?
we would show it on the plat as
Yeah.
basically basically dedicated open space.
Yeah.
Then it's on the plat and then it never goes away.
And then it shows up on a title commitment. somewhere.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So there, if that truly is within the lot line, it would show open space easement for that.
And that whole grove is not within the lots. The lot line kind of goes down the edge of them, so most of them will be in the open space anyways, but we can look at how the drainage strips that I've got affect those, and then we can put our line right below those.
Just an idea. I mean, I
No,
literally
I
have,
agree.
my next door neighbor had a guy with a cherry picker come over and was taken to the landscaping because he couldn't see the peak of the mountain.
Right. There's a couple of them that planted pine trees in the way, and now they're tall enough they can't see the peak, and they thought they'd never see that happen, but yeah. Yeah.
Just say, I don't know how old they were when they were planted on the island in front of me, but they're 40 feet easy right now.
Yeah.
That was 40 years ago.
Yeah.
Oh, well. Anyway, Carlos, what would you like from us?
Well, that goes through the 13 requirements from our May 18th meeting. I have a list of 9 recommendations that I pull from my comments in that. And so I think the best way to do it would be to compile your notes, see if there's a consensus on all that, and we will take that into account. And that for our next meeting, we'll have a recommendation, a motion for a recommendation to council that you can just read, no pressure. And, we can fine tune it if we need to, of course. But I think, putting a recommendation together on the fly, kind of like this, it might be best to just tell us what you want it to say. We can put it together for you and have it ready for our next meeting.
I think that's definitely a better approach.
You're saying we have to still do another meeting.
For approval of the for the passage of the
Recommendation.
recommendation. Yeah. We don't have to, but that's my recommendation, to get the recommendation tidy and right.
With conditions.
Well, it is. I mean, that's
There
what
will
we're
be
going to
conditions.
state out, but instead of them doing it on the fly and potentially missing something, we're gonna go over it, put it together for them, so it's just reading it off at the next meeting. They don't have to do that. You can put it together right
Well,
now.
considering we have another agenda item, I do think we do have to do that.
Yeah,
I don't think in another hour we'd be able to put that together.
yeah, but if there was, I mean, there's enough here, I think it would be prudent to get it in a more formal format for you to.
Okay.
approve.
Lisa, do you have any notes you'd like to, or conditions you'd recommend?
Well, it sounds like there's a few documents we're missing that they just received today. So we haven't had the opportunity to review those and even look at them. Is that right? You
It is,
received
but
some
I don't
stuff?
think the updated documents reflect anything of substance that would necessarily alter significantly the level of discussion that we've had.
Okay. I don't have any comments.
Okay. Read.
The three notes I made were individual site-specific studies of stability. Lambert to meet with general civil site engineer on site. And all drawings adjusted prior to consideration by council.
Okay. Corey, anything?
Just ready for the final draft.
Randy?
Yeah, I think, as I mentioned earlier, that items 2, 7, 11 are related, and that Lambert's July 12th letter talks about slopes that are subject to increased runoff be protected from erosion. It assumes mitigation techniques would be utilized to maintain groundwater levels at the measured elevations or lower. So I think, to kind of follow up on Reed's comment, to me, it's more than just a meeting of the geotechnical engineer and the civil engineer. I think there needs to be a drainage report that is done to industry standards for hydraulic analysis, hydrologic analysis, and then reviewed by the geotechnical engineer to meet those concerns of the geotechnical engineer, that those are satisfied. The other part of it, I guess there is an erosion control plan. That too should be reviewed by the geotechnical engineer to satisfy those concerns. And it should be both temporary and permanent erosion control and sedimentation control. There was mention of bonding. I guess I'd like to know, what are the requirements for bonding of the infrastructure? And
Well, the infrastructure that comes in with the SIA. So, once we have through preliminary plan, we know the general site plan there. We will get an engineer's estimate of, the cost of the improvements, and we build that all into the SIA, which, then so let's just say it's $5 million is the estimated cost of the infrastructure. Then that is, that cost is covered at 125%. We have a surety of some form protection against that, and that's either in a bond, a letter of credit, or something along those lines.
so to cover completion of the improvements, if they're not construction, or
Yeah.
failure, if they're not constructed to completion. Another thing I was looking at the flow chart again for the whole process here with annexation and this step here. Will we have any further input on the annexation, or is that totally in the town
We don't have
council?
anything to
Okay.
do with that at all, correct?
Okay. So I'm just thinking, there was discussion at one point about public benefit of the annexation. And whether we could at all try to influence that with the design at this level, for example, of, a trail perhaps connection that would benefit the public. But I don't know if that's anything all that we can recommend to the town council.
It can be. I mean, for example, the third community housing unit is in addition to what they're required to do, and that's coming from the annexation process and not through the subdivision process. So if you wanted to make a recommendation to look at public benefit or be specific.
Well, I think specifically some trail connection consideration would be great. There's a lot of open space as a part of this project, and if that could be connected through there somehow.
Well, that open space is a pretty steep slope.
Right,
And
but-
I don't think it has any real
That'd be a
connection to
pretty
our trail
expensive
system.
bridge.
Yeah.
No, but I'm talking about at the top of the slope and not in the avalanche hazard area.
I mean, I haven't looked at it too deep.
Well, yeah, the top of the slope off of Road B, there's no. Going the other way, the hillsides, right into a big pond, so. You do have public access on the roads, but from all the roads without getting on the real steep. I don't see it that way. One place that would be kind of handy is right off in Road B.
Bristol.
Crystal.
That's exactly what I'm thinking.
But we
about.
can't, the properties don't touch there. To the public right of way, so you'd have to get easements from lot owners on either side to get something through. If that did happen, it's an easy. Somebody would have to get those owners.
They don't have control over that. basically.
Right.
But is there a connection at Bristol?
It's way too steep.
Well, the sewer easement goes through there.
It's
Access
way too
the,
steep.
they access the manhole.
Yeah, they don't like to though. They don't like to.
They, yeah. They have to access that part from two different directions.
That's why I say that's gonna be a topic of discussion with the, could potentially be a topic of discussion with the district.
As much as we-
It's in an avalanche zone and they don't. They run risks if they have to do any maintenance on that in the winter time. Like,
As much as
They
I
don't
like
like
to see
that
trail
location.
connections, I just don't see that happening from this site. Not effectively anyway.
I mean, that's when there's a bus stop connection at, but the access to the bus stop there. So there's an easement there.
Andy, did you have anything else?
No, I think that covers it.
Nancy?
I like the wording that specifically says the technical engineer is gonna meet. Have a report done with that meeting, not just an informal a formal meeting with a report of the technical engineer. And that can happen by final plan.
that final plan,
That
yeah.
final plan,
That's part
but
of the final
I would, I want something official. Road radius, I would like to have some verbiage in there somewhere saying that issue of town code due to conditions, and I'd like those conditions laid out. Why we have to go against town code. And I would like to see further.
Okay. The only thing I've got list, that they've covered my list pretty much. And this doesn't necessarily have to be in the document, but I would like some more brain cells expended on the voting in the HOA. The license agreement condition needs to be in there. I'm sure that wouldn't slip past you.
I have my 1 through 9.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that those are,
And those, yes.
everything that you're saying is in addition to those, or if it's specific to something that's already there, an add-on to it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So anybody else? Please.
I have a super random question. With this, the degree of slope, has anybody talked to Waste Management to see how they're gonna be picking up trash on that steep of a slope? It was just something that crossed my mind. I'm like, so,
That
What-
might be a good conversation to have because they may want a dumpster at the top.
yeah, I mean, I'm thinking, you know, the fire department said, yeah, we can get a fire truck down there to the Hammersack, whatever. But if the subdivision is planning on having Waste Management or whomever pick up, I guess, yeah, I'd want to know. I'd be curious what they would say, I guess. Will they go all the way down to lot 1, or will they say, nope, you got to bring your trash up to, 5, 6, or 5 through 8 lots? It was just something I thought of, so
Good thinking.
that was it.
Okay, Carlos, do you have what you need?
Think so. I have to go back to the tape. And
Oh,
double check
good.
or rely on Tiffany's great notes. But yes, and just so we're clear, like on the geotechnical stuff, that's that final plan. The nuts and bolts.
It's part of final
Yeah,
plan.
and then just one comment, Reed, and with Daniel and everything on the soils report, the site specific stuff is any new construction in Mount CB requires a geotechnical report. So every new single family home always comes with a
Right.
soils report. So it's not necessary to put that in, but it does not hurt to
Reiterate.
include it either.
You guys have any questions for us? That's,
I'd be okay with that.
or kind of depends on what's on the agenda.
Well, it's North Village, but I think if we are more or less just approving the passing on the recommendation as more or less written, we can put it on there.
First
As a
agenda.
first
As first
yeah.
agenda item.
Yeah.
Because otherwise we're closing that meeting just for North Village, but if
I really want to caveat this, saying that North Village is on the 4th, just because I haven't had the opportunity to get through all of the documentation yet, and that's anticipated to happen tomorrow. So we'll have a more definitive answer after you and I can connect on my comments.
it's tentatively scheduled for August 4th.
Yes, thank you.
Keep the applicant up to date.
Yes, but I think the progress we made tonight wouldn't preclude us from having this as a relatively short agenda item in front of us.
I would agree with that.
And I think it's only fair to the applicant as well.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you.
Comfort level. Get into the final phase, we won't wait till the end of the process.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
7:03, excellent. Excellent work.
Next agenda item is, actually, I'm gonna suggest that we take about
Are
a
you?
3-minute break here, if you don't mind.
Oh, all right.
'Cause I need
Having
to-
salad.
I've got
Starving.
a liter of water. There he
Aha.
is, okay. All right, moving on to item 6.2, design review and driveway modification application located at 47 Whetstone Road, Lot 9, Block H, Chalet Village Edition Number 2, as submitted by Peter Vale. Take it away, Todd.
Peter Vale has submitted drawings for a single-family residence, which includes a detached garage with an accessory dwelling unit. They've gone through the design review process, and this lot is extremely hard to access. It's really steep. I'm sure a lot of you have driven up there, have seen that. They've been working on access driveway for a long time. You might recall in November, they did bring a different driveway plan to the Planning Commission, and that driveway and subsequent design review was denied based on that it was not substantially similar to town standards. They have been, and Andrea Brazonic's here and Daniel Spivey representing Peter Vale, who is not here. But they and their civils have been working a lot. I've seen a lot of different plans, and the civils have been, the civil engineers spending a lot of time with the fire department, trying to get work out something with the fire department where they would feel, the fire department would feel comfortable submitting a letter to the town saying they would feel comfortable accessing and come up with a plan. In the packet, you've seen, or hopefully seen the letter from the fire department. And there, my staff report outlines some of the things that don't match, or well, all of the things that don't meet the standards for a driveway. And we have drawings that I can pull up if needed, but I'll leave that up to you for some questions then. For either me or Andrew or Daniel.
So Corey, any questions? Randy?
I'm just looking at the district's letter, and typically I've seen where they don't count on the driveway being heated. Obviously those systems fail, they don't get turned on and off. Just kind of curious if they had anything to say about that.
I did talk to the fire department about that. And if that was, I think this was also offered by the applicant as part of the deal. And the fire department did like that. And so in our discussions, as one of the recommendations you might see is that we want that letter recorded. So then if the property sold as part of a title search, they would know that the driveway is to be heated all winter, whether you're there or not. Just because if you leave for a couple months, no short-term rentals, somebody might turn it off, but doesn't mean there might not be a fire there. So that was definitely talked about. It's a good concern. And I know the fire department understands that as well. So this is what they came up with.
So is there a better way of describing that condition number 1? The driveway shall be heated all winter. There's an awful lot of treacherous driving that happens before and after winter.
Do you have any ideas?
Well,
when is
November, we
Picking
do our
random-
parking laws are November 15th, to April 15th. I mean, that's just off the top of my head.
Yeah, well, that's about where I was headed. I think that's probably a safer bet than just saying for the winter.
Well, and the intent is that it be free and clear of snow and ice at all times. So I don't know how you assure that.
Because we have.
In
Right.
June.
Yeah, so I think it's not only a function of, being year round, but systems functioning. So it seems like it's pretty tough to.
To nail that down, yeah.
Or to it, sure.
Right.
Is
say
it-
until you blew your face, but just some.
Is it not thermostatically controlled?
I have no idea.
There are systems now that are regulated through like HVM here in town that like trip your system once it gets wet, it automatically kicks on.
Okay.
And then if it's not working, then they get alarmed, it's not working. There are those new systems out there like that. So it could work it could be on all year round and click on whenever it's needed.
Gotcha. Okay.
When it
That's what I
hits a
was-
certain temperature, you know, when it gets below a certain temperature or too much moisture.
Did
Mhm. Mhm.
Sounds like that would be a more definitive
Mm-hmm.
solution to that.
Not the date, but the controlled by humidity and temperature.
If you put something in there just about inclement weather, I mean, doesn't that kind of cover?
Well, it may not necessarily be occupied at the time, so
Right.
it almost has to be automated.
Well, and that would be the case. If it's in weather and nobody's there. It needs.
it be,
So an automated system that's.
Thermostatically
triggered-
controlled.
yeah, Triggered by temperature.
Moisture, humidity.
want an alarm associated with it. If it's
I-
not working.
You know, I mean, it appears to me from the plans that that part of the intent in this project is going to be to use it as a rental. And I think that the driveway needs to be clear.
Yeah.
So yeah, it probably does need some kind of human backup.
Yeah, and it's really not an alarm. I think it just needs to be monitored.
Right.
So I have a question.
Yep.
For our short-term rentals up here, does there need to be a person that the town can call in case of emergencies?
Yes.
So that might be a helpful situation for the driveway thing, that there is a person we can call saying, hey, it's snowing.
Well, it won't be us calling.
Well, not us, but I mean, there is a person that if somebody drives by and observes it not working or no water bugs or not water bugs, timing things,
Yeah.
that there's a human behind it. Okay, just asking.
Anybody else?
How
Questions?
does this get overseen and enforced?
Well, that's the automation.
So if it's off,
Well, when a renter shows up, they ostensibly would have this contact information,
right,
you know, on their phone or in their packet or whatever, and they would call.
but if it's not a short-term rental, nobody's there for months, and it's off, how's it gonna be enforced and where is it?
Well, if we see that, you know, there's 5 feet of snow in the driveway, we'd have to get involved and say they're in violation. If it was short-term rental, you know,
Is that gonna
put a
be
hold on the license.
You guys?
It should come to us at some point. You know, it might not be us that sees it, but yeah, it would fall to us.
There's a lot of driveways that maintained all winter,
Mhm.
so.
And we try and,
Yeah.
That's true.
we try and
That's
deal
pretty
with
true.
those as we see them.
Not only that, it's
Varying degrees of success.
I think the point about somehow tying it to the short-term rental license would be critical, because that would, you know, be our way of protecting the public essentially.
That's the only way to do it is to have it heated. You can't get that half a degree.
At that pitch,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
probably.
Sliding down.
that was,
Never get out.
that's a half a degree difference, right?
I don't, 13.9, I don't know that, I mean, that was a discussion between the fire department and the applicant, and I don't know if that was the deciding factor. We just got the report.
I mean, it just seems to me that if I were doing that and it was that close, I would choose not to have it heated just for the PIA factor.
Well, it's,
So,
you know, it's access for an ambulance, it's,
Right.
you know, and the guests.
Thought off your plate if you don't have to have it heated.
No, you're right. Yes, sir. Mr. Huck, you're gonna have to move up and take a microphone. You don't have to move up, but you have to take. a
Will you
microphone.
entertain some comments from the neighbors, from a representative of the neighbor?
Can't hear you.
Ooh, I'm sorry. Will you entertain some comments from a representative of the neighbor?
Sure.
Thank you. I'm going to reference just a couple of pages of the application materials. The first item I want to talk with you about is on page 11 of the drawings, and I don't know if it's possible to bring that up on the screen.
I've got it. if you want to share.
Tiffany, can you turn him up?
He's up, oh, what,
11, please.
what does it say on that?
It says clear one. Oh,
Council one?
Council 6.
Council six,
Council
thank you.
6.
Or you might need to give me a sheet number.
That's fine right there. That's fine. And then, okay, if you could scroll it up just a little bit, Hillary. Okay. Actually, the prior page is probably a little more clear. Without the red lines and the fire trucks. I think it's the 231, actually. Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
31.
I do want to note for you as the Jinx, my name is Aaron Huckstep from Huckstep Law. I represent the neighbors, Tom and Carolyn Jinx. They asked me to come and share a few comments this evening. First, this ties into a little bit of what you're talking about with respect to heating of the driveway. There's a culvert that runs under Whetstone Road. It appears to daylight on the Vales property and run right into the driveway. This appears to be overflow, but I am not familiar with the drainage coming out of that culvert. Where does that water go, especially in the winter? Certainly in the shoulder seasons when it could freeze on that driveway. And what does that drainage flow look like once it crosses the driveway? As it looks now, my expectation would be just a guess, falls onto the driveway, either freezes or starts running down towards the house and going towards the drainage between the two properties, but I don't know. And I don't know if there's been any thought given to that, but that will exacerbate any issue with respect to drivability on that driveway, especially given the grade. Second, Hillary, if you can move to the next page.
Sure thing.
One item that was talked about at a prior planning commission meeting was access for emergency vehicles. And you'll notice that there are 2 pages, this sheet and the next sheet, that demonstrate access by fire trucks and 150-foot hose length. Notice here on this first page, the fire truck is half in and half out of the driveway. It's half blocking Whetstone Road. And I want to remind everybody that beyond the Vales property is Columbine. It's a lot of people over there. So this particular sheet shows that if there's a fire emergency, vehicles are going to pull into the driveway and block half of Whetstone Road. If you go to the next sheet, same depiction, but the fire truck is moved. Now it is directly blocking my client's property's driveway. So one way or the other, based on these depictions, it appears that if there's a fire emergency, these issues that have already been discussed still are not resolved. I certainly respect that the civil folks are talking about these, but I don't think, and the neighbors don't believe, that these issues with respect to fire suppression have really been addressed. Third question we had that the Jinx had was with respect to the turning radius into the driveway and the garage. And I think probably the best picture is 231. I think. If you look at this depiction, there are 2 cars pulling into the driveway, 1 parked in front of the garage, and then 2 more parked as stacked at the end of the driveway. The turning radius within, and the space within here where the pavement is, do not appear to me to allow any of those vehicles to turn around, maybe by a 10-point turn, I don't know. But my question is, and the question of the neighbors is, are those vehicles going to be backing out onto Whetstone Road? And given the grade, doesn't that create another problem? And I keep referring back to the grade because the neighbors still believe that grade is excessive on that driveway. From a procedural perspective, my clients read the staff report and they noted on page 5, 6, and 7 that there's, I think maybe there's some language at the top of those pages that indicates that it's described as Vale Residence - approved. And then I think it's highlighted. So I want to point that out because my clients got that report or got the staff report and got concerned that maybe something had happened that they just didn't know about. I don't think that residence has been approved, or not to my knowledge. And then the last issue relates to snow removal. During the course of the Jinx ownership of this property, they've come to believe that the town utilizes this particular lot for snow removal purposes from Whetstone, that there's a lot of snow being pushed into this lot from Whetstone. And the question is, does the town, first, does that actually happen? I don't know that for certain. And then second, if this snow storage area is gone, where does that snow go? That doesn't necessarily impact the design of the home, but it is a practical issue that my neighbors, or I'm sorry, my clients are concerned about. So I appreciate the chance to share those comments. The first 4 of those items are really life safety issues that I think are important to the Jinx next door. Thank you for entertaining these comments.
Thank you. I might need to add that town attorney Kathy Fogo is actually online as well with us for questions, comments.
Hi, Kathy.
But she's muted.
You want me to try to answer any of those or?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, hi, everyone. I'm trying to figure out how to work around the screen and my inability to work my computer.
Yeah.
As I can try to remember some of the questions, we have had conversations, or I have, with the fire department. And they do talk that there's multiple places all over the town where if there was an incident, they would be parking and blocking off one lane of traffic. And if it's a real emergency, it might even be more than that.
Yeah.
And there's numerous places in town where the fire hydrant is not conveniently on your side of the street. They're on the other side of the street. So it's not unique to this place at all. And they do have devices that go over the hoses to try to keep traffic open. Yes, it's on a bus loop, so there would be some, or maybe some inconveniences, but hopefully there'd be some understanding if there was a big incident. I took it that they may park up on the road where it was shown in the drawings, and that they might drive down the driveway. If they weren't planning on driving down the driveway, I don't think they would have cared if it was heated or not. So they're planning on, if they can, using the driveway to access this. As far as a culvert, I'm not aware of a culvert closer to the Jinxes, but that might be, I'm just maybe not aware of it. I do know that.
It's the culvert there.
And the other.
Looking at it, right, yeah, yep. So we do have plans. It doesn't really show because we don't have final grading plans, but that would be diverted underneath the driveway. And it does come out, like if you're looking at the plan, if you walk over there right now, walk through the lot, it kind of diverts to that right side anyways. And we would divert it to the right side of that property for drainage. And going back to the fire department, when I did meet with the fire department, they did discuss being able to drive down the driveway and back out for their fire trucks and EMS. And also for the other, if for the other drawing that they had, the fire department blocking that driveway, that is a shared driveway, and my client still owns that and has access to it, as the Jinxes have access to. but it is still his driveway and property as well.
I can address the snow
Yeah.
question in general. I mean, I would say, you know, that's specifics of that would have to come from Bobby and the Public Works, but I do know that we use any space possible we can to store snow in big winters, but we don't have the ability to say you can't build on your lot or put something on your lot because we store snow there, unfortunately. We would like to, but we don't have the ability to do that. So as, you know, for example, cul-de-sacs, a lot of snow collects in cul-de-sacs. And as cul-de-sacs get built out, it becomes more and more of a challenge for our guys to plow and find places to put snow, or in some cases haul off snow. So at any level of construction on a vacant lot, you know, provides additional challenges for snow removal, but it can't be caused to.
Well, and at least if built as proposed, that part of it that fell on the driveway would get melted.
Yeah, and we're gonna push snow there either way. That's the other part. That's what
That's right,
Bobby will tell
yeah.
you. It's like, we're gonna push
Right.
snow.
I've busted through 3-foot berms in my driveway.
Yeah.
I have a question for
Lisa.
you, Carlos. So what she just said, this driveway is on the Vales property or no?
There's the gravel driveway that Hillary has highlighted in blue there.
Yeah.
Is the Jinx's driveway, and that crosses the Vale property.
Okay, wait, I'm not, the blue is.
Right here. This gravel
Up there.
driveway, this is the
That's-
Vale property.
okay.
This crosses the Vale
Gravel,
property to the Jinx
okay.
property,
Gotcha.
Huck's clients. And that is a access easement. Unknown what that is right now. Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
We'll
Okay,
get this.
so, well, I'm just
There
trying
you
to
have
get
it.
it straight in my mind that the Jinxes have access through the Vales property. Is that right?
Well, I think that's,
Or,
it sounds like that's
Well,
being
just-
disputed.
This might help. Yeah, that
Could you
outlined
introduce
in blue.
yourself and
I'm
do
sorry,
your-
I'm Daniel Spivey, and I'm the attorney representing Peter Vale. The Jinx do use that blue area right there for access. Legally, it's in dispute what that is, who has the rights to it, et cetera. But important for this meeting, I believe, is that the driveway being proposed impacts that driveway in no way. And so that driveway is untouched based on the plans that are being submitted to you.
so my question is still that the Jinxes access driveway is on the Vale property.
Correct.
Okay, just wanted to clarify my mind on that. Okay.
Great. And if I made the one culvert, I thought you were referring to another one, is further away on the other side of the proposed buildings, unless you guys are wrong, of the proposed Vale buildings. And on the civil drawings, it does, the latest civil drawings show that culvert is extended to lower than the house.
Oh, yeah, it does.
It, you know,
Interesting.
the first time when they were doing this, they had it kind of daylighting and the grade was gonna work for them to kind of go down to where it naturally went. Now they've lowered the house a little bit because it was too tall. So now they are extending that culvert to the other side, the downhill side of that. Of the house, sorry, of the house unit. And we do have that in the civil drawing.
Read.
The drawing on 231 shows cars in the garage, right?
Yes.
And I assume that then that pavement is going to go up to that garage so they can get in there, even though it's not depicted as part of the driveway. Correct?
I am not, sorry, I'll let Andrea.
So those cars that are in the garage would have room to turn around and go out head first.
Correct.
So it's when we're having extra cars, and I think there are many properties in Mount Crested Butte that have extra cars that have a problem, particularly with short-term rentals, and I don't think that's something we can get away with or, avoid. from a fire department standpoint, I'll just add in from my 17 years on the fire department, that if there's a major fire emergency there, you're going to get a minimum of 3 fire trucks and 1 ambulance. And that road, Whetstone Road, is definitely going to be closed. That's the nature of the beast. From a EMS standpoint, an ambulance isn't gonna block the road, and frankly, I think the bigger reason that the fire district wants that heated is for ambulance access.
Or gurneys.
Yeah,
Yes,
and for their personnel to be able to walk up and down and not get hurt, and now we have workman's comp claims with the fire district. So, and as Todd pointed out, I think there are so many places in Mount Crested Butte where if there's a major fire emergency, the road's gonna be closed for as long as it takes. So I think that, you know, while those are concerns, I think they're concerns throughout the whole town.
Fair enough.
So the parking. Those 2 cars that are at top of the screen. 2 bedrooms that are being. Parking
Yes,
to agree with what's required for the number of bedrooms that are
Hmm.
designed.
they have 7 bedrooms.
So those 2 cars are. Tandem. Yeah, tandem. It's on 12% grade. Hard to envision them back. Are they gonna back out the whole entire? Doesn't look like there's, like typically you'll see a little, I guess like a hammer sack or something that allows you to. Because more space for the car to turn around. Because of the site.
Todd, you were the applicant.
Yeah, okay. The cars are required because of bedrooms, so you got that. And we don't like people backing out onto roads. And this, but it does happen everywhere, and kind of our concern is that they can show parking on their property. And I agree, if they have 2 or 3 big trucks down there, it's gonna be really difficult. The cars are smaller, they might be able to do a 5-point turn and get around. I don't have, I'm not sure that, but it's gonna be a pain, you know, a driveway that is probably not the most comfortable.
But there's site limitations that
Are there site limitations?
create that difficulties.
That is,
Oh.
creating difficulty that they can't put that in. I would suggest.
Oh, yeah, I mean, so for the modification process?
Yeah.
Absolutely. This hill or this site is so steep, it definitely meets the physical hardship and practical difficulty to, well, that's outlined in a variance wordage, but absolutely, I would say that it is, there's a physical hardship or practical difficulty to get much more area in there.
So if I might add, and I'm not an engineer and I didn't design this, but it appears that there are 2 step-down retaining walls to the south side of the driveway where those 2 cars are parked, and that would and because of the Jinx driveway to the north, that would preclude the ability of putting in a hammer stack there without a lot of other infrastructure.
Yeah, that's a great point.
There's a grade break in this. From a flatter grade to 12%, 12.75, 4.75 to 12.75. The town code has grade maximum for driveways of 12%. So this.
The way I read that is in the code is the grade break is more of a straight line that's got a specific point. And this is drawn to show the difference, but the actual grade is spread out over a longer period of time. So it's still, I would say, in my mind, that it does meet code for that part. If I understand it right.
Well, typically they'll have, from point A to point B going downhill, there's a change in grade, and that's shown in the profile, but this profile specifically shows the grade.
Yeah, where it goes to 4.75.
Is 12.75.
So that's an 8.
How you add them together. So it's 17 and a half.
Yeah. Keep going. In the drawings. Just keep going. It's notes near the bottom.
That one, right.
We're looking for the driveway.
It's at the
profile.
top of that.
Sorry. 137, page 137.
You've got it.
Yeah, this is the driveway.
I guess if we're gonna, that's another sort of modification that we're gonna have to. Lastly, I'm really concerned about the almost 9% grade that's coming. Whetstone. If there's any cross traffic on Whetstone, person coming out of that entrance is gonna have to
Backwards.
backwards. So to me, I mean, most people would just gun it up, go pop out onto Whetstone. But like you said, there are people coming out of Columbine. So not having either grade, more than double that. Fact that the driveway is now more perpendicular to Whetstone, that's plus, but
Lisa.
With what Nancy just said, I used to have a house in Mount Crested Butte and I had to back out of my driveway onto Anthracite with a curve and I just gunned it and it was just fine. Every time. So Columbine is the only condos past this house. So there's not that many people. I walk through that parking lot quite often. There's hardly anybody ever there. And the bus only goes by every 30 minutes. And you can see the bus. So if you're, if it's 3 minutes after and 33 minutes after, you're gonna know there's no bus for 30 minutes. So I don't know who I'm talking to.
Who are you talking to?
But, so I'm not concerned about the 9% because I think mine was more like 17. I gunned it and got out of there and went about my day. So I'm not concerned about that. I have a question though. So I was just reading this required proposed building square footage. Maximum 5,069 max. And I've got, is it 5566 that's proposed?
Oh, I have to.
This is page 218.
Yeah, I'll have to find that because I don't remember that.
For totals, square footage of building? For building square footage or what?
Yep, building square footage.
No, it is, I think 48.
Oh, so the total is
The
plus
total is
garage?
4878. The garage square footage is 629.
Right, the RSF
Oh,
includes the
right.
garage, and the GRFA is the actual.
All of it.
Well, this 600 square feet of garage space doesn't count in that GRFA number.
Okay.
And the 25% maximum is based off of GRFA, which gives you 600 square feet of garage space,
Right.
or doesn't count.
Or does the first 650 doesn't count?
600.
600.
So the residential square feet is for community housing calculations. That's why it's there. But for zoning purposes, you're going after GRFA.
Any
Correct.
questions?
No.
Corey, questions? Nope. Comments? You're done?
Done.
Lisa's done? You got a motion? I don't know.
There's probably one written up.
There probably is.
We think so.
Yeah, I think
So
we
my
have
only
that.
concerns really are about solving that heating the driveway issue so that it's really appropriate for our location. And then to extend the culvert, unlike the drawings we have.
Well,
Drawings,
they are in the civil drawings.
okay. we
That
don't have
culvert.
those.
The
Yes,
culvert?
they are on there.
They're not on mine.
No, they are, in the civil drawing. Sorry, that's,
We don't get those.
no, I gave them, they're in the packet.
It's like the last sheet.
It's like the last
Or
sheet, the
second
one
to
that
last
has the
sheet.
driveway profile on the top.
Got it, and it does not show. It shows an
Oh,
outlet
and then,
at the,
Hold on.
above the driveway.
Dusty's saying it doesn't show the full culvert that
underneath the
Andrea said.
driveway.
So I would just
Yeah.
do that as a condition.
Sure.
okay.
If it's been done, great, but it's not here.
I understand.
Mhm.
And on the heating, I think automated and monitored. I don't know if that
Control.
covers it quite, but that's the challenge.
My notes were controlled by moisture and temperature.
I think we
Or automatic.
just rather say automated, that's a little cleaner, because
Yep.
we don't
Yeah.
know the mechanism in which those work.
So
Automated to automatically turn on and turn off in a
Same
winter event,
Automated.
or a snow event, snow and ice event.
I'm gonna trust staff to work through that language in a way that satisfies them.
Yeah,
But
I would say if we're gonna put it on the cusp, if we're going towards a motion, is to have the driveway be heated and automated to automatically turn on in the snow or ice event, and for it to be monitored, centrally monitored by an alarm service in case it does not
what he said.
work.
Hmm.
How's that?
So I'm gonna make a motion to recommend approval of this driveway with the 4 conditions from the fire district. Also with a modification to number 1, using the language that Carlos just used about automating the driveway. He's gonna have to listen to the tape again. And that the future drawings show the culvert extended beyond the house.
Second.
Thanks. Is there any discussion?
Your clerk has a question.
What?
Your clerk has a question.
Yes, clerk, I can barely hear you.
Microphone.
Use the microphone.
Sorry, I was having to finish typing. Dusty, does your motion include items 1 through 5 in the packet?
Yes,
Okay, I heard 4 items, so I wanted to make sure that they included items 1 through 5 in the packet.
that too.
That's
Yes.
4 items from the fire
Fire
district
district
letter,
and
5
5 from the
items
town.
in the proposed motion.
Which it takes those in, the fire department ones are part of the 5.
Okay, as long as they're all covered at least once.
Those are the 5 town requirements.
Okay.
Well, actually, as I read that, because you're modifying the first requirement to be both heated concrete with an automated system that's monitored and all the things Carlos said, in addition to conditions 2 through 5. So I would say
Yes.
it's conditions 2 through 5 and a modification of condition 1 to be what Carlos said.
That sounds great.
It's all covered.
What Hillary said.
But Hillary said-
Boy, this is really getting convoluted.
It is. Does anybody have any questions or comments on the motion? Everybody understands? In that case, will staff call the roll for a vote?
Corey,
Yes.
Randy,
No.
Nancy,
Oh,
Lisa,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Dusty,
Yes. Would our noes like to explain their reasoning?
sure. One, I'm not confident about. the situation. Turn the switch off and it's not heated and.
Thank you. Great.
My concerns are, the item A, in terms of being able to make modifications that the design doesn't substantially comply with the standards, in some cases less than the first time we saw it.
The motion did carry. So do we have any other business?
Only other business at this point, if there's, was my council report, our council report in the packet?
No.
No, sorry about that. I was gonna see if there were any questions there. Other than that, we talked earlier today, tentatively scheduled August 4th. We'll have Hunter Ridge, proposed motion and potentially, North Village.
and town picnic, July 28th. If you have an RSVP, let me know.
Okay,
That's all we've got.
we can still get out of here 2 minutes early, 5 minutes early, actually. We have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, Reed. Do we have a second? Thanks, Corey.
All right.
All in favor, stand up and leave. We're adjourned. Thank you.
One thing we can do too, as part of inspection